The Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Authority, Dr. Mustafa Abdulhamid, who was speaking during a presser on the country's petroleum downstream sector organized by the Information Ministry, confirmed the arrival of a third consignment of fuel under the Good for Oil policy. This forms part of the 155,000 metric tons of fuel expected by the end of the month. The NPA boss, however, added that his outfits will ensure that oil marketing companies who receive products sell in line with the policy.
We introduced this gold for oil thing, which we have been doing. So far, 3 cargoes of gold for oil petroleum consignments have arrived in the country. The first one was for 40,000 metric tons of, I'll use the ordinary language, of diesel. And then in the last week, we have had 35,000 metric tons of petrol, and then also another 40,000 metric tons of diesel that have come especially under the Gold for Oil program. Our goal is that ultimately the Gold for Oil program should account for 50% of petroleum product imports into our country, and then the rest of the 50% would be done through the normal channels by the BDCs and so on and so forth. But where NPA comes in as a regulator is that we are going to ensure that if you are supplied fuel or petroleum products under Gold for Oil, that it truly reflects the prices at the pump. Because ultimately that is the aim of government in introducing this program, to ensure that fuel is affordable.
Meanwhile, speaking during a Q&A session at the event, the Minister for Information, Kojo Nkrumah, stressed that despite the deregulation of the petroleum sector, there is a need for government intervention under the current circumstance to ensure consumers have access to affordable fuel.
Deregulation policies generally are adopted when you want to open up the market for the forces to play on their own. But market forces sometimes fail. And when market forces fail, which is a normal phenomenon in economics, when market forces fail, governments have a responsibility to intervene. So in the UK, for example, they are doing what they call the energy price cap. Because, again, the forces, it's a deregulated market, the forces of demand and supply are playing, but because of an exogenous matter that has happened, prices have gone through the roof. Will the government sit back quietly and say, let people keep paying God knows how much for gas, especially when they were going towards winter? So what they decided to do was to introduce what they call the energy price cap, where your prices were not going to go beyond a certain amount. Now it's very easy for somebody to say, okay, so why don't you do that here in Ghana? Find out what their fiscal position is, what their reserves are, how they can fund that cap that they sought to introduce. But government intervened there. And the principle, therefore, is that when you have a market failure, when you have challenges in the market because of an exogenous factor like this, governments have to find a way to intervene. In this instance, here in our republic, this is one of the ways that government is using as an intervention. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the deregulation policy is a bad policy.